It was a hot and cold rookie season for Jabari Smith Jr., the third overall pick by the Houston Rockets in the 2022 NBA Draft. The good news was that he finished the year with double-figure scoring games in 19 of his last 20 contests. In that time frame, he averaged 15.8 points on 47.2% overall shooting and 36.5% three-point shooting to go along with 7.7 rebounds. What improved the most as the season went on was his pull-up jump shooting from outside the paint, which was considered his main offensive strength coming into the NBA. He loves to usually take one or two dribbles going either direction and rise over his defender. It's basic, it's simple, it's nothing fancy, but it's effective because of his length and shooting touch. So before March 4th, Smith shot just 31.9% on pull-up jumpers outside the paint on 72 attempts. From March 4th on, which was 20 games, he shot 52.5% on 40 attempts. Among players who took at least 25 of these shots during that time, that was the sixth best percentage in the league. As I mentioned just before, he doesn't take many dribbles prior to his pull-ups. In fact, for the season, he averaged just 2.6 dribbles prior to pull-up jumpers. Among those who took at least 75 pull-up jumpers outside the paint, that was the eighth fewest. And if you remember, it was in this fashion that he buried a game-winning three-pointer against the Pelicans on March 17th. Now conversely, he really struggled all year with his shooting off the catch. In fact, on the season, he only made 30.3% of his catch-and-shoot three-pointers, either stationary, on the move going in either direction, or relocating per second spectrum. His 304 attempts were 26th most in the league, but among players who took at least 200 of them, he had the second worst percentage. Only John Collins shot it worse at 29.6%. I noticed that he's a little more comfortable shooting on the left side of the floor than the right, and the numbers pretty much back that up, especially inside the arc. From the mid-range specifically, he shot 42% on the left side and 29% on the right side per second spectrum. To best understand what Smith might be capable of if he puts it all together is reviewing his best performance of the season, which came on March 9th against the Pacers in Indiana. In that game, he scored a career-best 30 points on 10 of 19 overall shooting from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point range, and 7 of 9 from the free throw line, to go along with 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. So among his 10 made floor shots, 3 of them were pull-up jumpers, which I've already highlighted in this video as being his greatest scoring strength. 2 of them were out of post-ups, and I think this is an area he has a chance to really excel at going forward because of his length. Now, only 7.2% of his scoring came out of post-ups during his rookie year, but I wouldn't be surprised if that increases. He's got a nice turnaround jumper, as these clips accentuate. Going back to the Pacers game, he made a driving layup, a driving floater, a couple catch-and-shoot jumpers, including a three-pointer that sent the game to overtime, and he followed up a miss with a tip-in. Another one of his strong games was against Boston on March 13th, in which he scored 24 points on 9 of 11 overall shooting from the field and 5 of 6 from three-point distance. What was interesting about this performance was that none of his made shots were standard pull-up jumpers. He did make a step-back three-pointer, but otherwise, most of his made shots were either catch-and-shoot, off cuts, or in transition. Ultimately, I don't think Jabari is ever going to have an extensive scoring package. His ball handling is not very advanced, but the bottom line is, how efficient can he become with his spot-up outside shooting and his simple pull-up jump shooting from the mid-range? Let's remember, the Rockets ranked last in three-point percentage this past season and were tied with the Bulls for fewest made threes per game. They need Smith to be the off-ball shooter that he was advertised to be coming out of Auburn. Now, what adds to Jabari's long-term value is what he can do defensively on the perimeter. He actually contested the second most three-pointers in the league during the 2022-23 season. Opponents did shoot just a shade under 39% on those attempts, which is quite high for contested threes. But I'm impressed with how well he moves his feet on the perimeter, and I do think that's what's going to make him a really high-impact defender. At his height, he's excellent at staying in front of attackers on drives. Adding strength is going to be key. He got bumped off quite a bit by opponents as they made their move toward the hoop, as these clips accentuate. As far as players he reminds me of, leading up to the draft last year, many compared him to Rashard Lewis, and I think that's still a really good one. Especially when he joined the Magic and played alongside Dwight Howard, Lewis was the perfect complement because of his ability to space the floor, use his mobility against more traditional fours, and shoot over the top of smaller players when he had mismatches. I definitely see some Michael Porter Jr. in Jabari as well. Same height and essentially the same role. Porter has become Denver's primary spacer when either Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray are operating. Another player he reminds me of a bit, although Smith is definitely more athletic, is Andrea Bargnani. Bargnani had that one or two dribble pull-up in his bag, and like Jabari, his height gave him an advantage when he rose over defenders. While I don't think he'll ever be as smooth, I do think there's a touch of Brandon Ingram in Jabari. Ingram's one of the best I've ever seen at getting to his spots in the mid-range, even when defenders are draped all around him. Ingram is definitely a better ball handler, a little quicker, savvier for sure. He has amazing touch from the mid-range, and it doesn't matter how tightly defenders play him. He's just going to rise and launch right over the top, which is precisely what Jabari has a chance to replicate to some extent as he continues to sharpen his skills. Now, it's important to mention that Ingram is an outstanding playmaker as well, and someone that can run an offense. I don't expect Jabari to possess those skills, particularly, at least at Ingram's level. Just some general stats on Jabari for the season. He averaged 12.8 points, 7.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 0.9 blocks, and 0.5 steals. He scored 20 plus points 12 times and recorded 16 double-doubles. So that'll wrap up this video. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe.